Ulixes in Latin. Long day wanes, the slow moon climbs. With that line I just mentioned from Ulysses, which I'll read aloud in just a minute. He says, the lights begin to twinkle from the rocks, the long day wanes, the slow moon climbs, the deep moans round with many voices. That sort of rhythm there. One of the things that makes poetry, thank you, so interesting is the variety in the sound and the rhythm of the words. A poet who's writing poetry well will be using the sounds of the language to create this experience here. And so here when he says, the lights begin to twinkle from the rocks. That line is sort of, notice how it's sort of light and fast. The lights begin to twinkle from the rocks. We imagine, the setting sun or the stars even glistening on the wet rocks by the seashore. But then he says, the long day wanes, the slow moon climbs. That line just moves at a very different pace. The lights begin to twinkle from the rocks. The long day wanes, the slow moon climbs. The long day. He gives us this image of length and slowness, the slow moon, by writing this line that just sounds so much slower and rounder than that previous one. The deep moans round with many voices. The deep is moaning. The depths of the sea are calling to him. These dark, slow, deep things. So this is why poetry is really meant to be read aloud or recited even better, because the sound is so important. All right, so Ulysses by Alfred Lord Tennyson. By the way, it's not the case that his middle name is Lord. So his name was Alfred, and then his title is he was a lord in the British nobility, and he was Lord Tennyson. That was his title. So Alfred, Lord Tennyson, usually how you see it written. There lies the port. The vessel puffs her sail. There gloom the dark, broad seas. My mariners, souls that have toiled and wrought and thought with me, that ever with a frolic welcome took the thunder and the sunshine, and opposed free hearts, free foreheads. You and I are old. Old age has yet his honor and his toil. Death closes all, but something ere the end, some work of noble note may yet be done, not unbecoming men that strove with gods. The lights begin to twinkle from the rocks. The long day wanes. The slow moon climbs. The deep moans round with many voices. Come, my friends. 'Tis not too late to seek a newer world. Push off, and sitting well in order, smite the sounding furrows. For my purpose holds to sail beyond the sunset in the baths of all the western stars until I die. It may be that the gulfs will wash us down. It may be we shall touch the happy isles and see the great Achilles whom we knew. Though much is taken, much abides. And though we are not now that strength which in the old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are, we are. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. Repetition, another thing we pay attention to. Free hearts, free foreheads. You and I are old, old age has yet his honor and his toil. To strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield in that last line. In that second to last stanza, or really just before that, my purpose holds to sail beyond the sunset. So he's sailing which direction? If he's going beyond the sunset's in what direction? Sunset's in the four options: north, south, east, west. Sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So he's going to sail beyond the sunset into the west, beyond where the sun sets, and the baths of all the western stars until I die. When you look at the stars, which you really should do sometime, it's hard here because there's so many lights at night. It makes it very difficult to see the stars, but you can still see a good number of them. Spend some nights, sometime when it's dark, turn out the lights, go outside, lie on the ground and look at the stars. Watch them slowly turn. As the earth turns, the stars, as far as we can perceive, the stars don't move. They do actually, but very slowly from our perspective. But the earth turns. And so the stars stay still and the earth turns. So the stars seem to move across the sky in a great circle. The North Star, which is almost directly above the North Pole, because that's the axis where the earth is turning, it doesn't seem to move. But the other stars that are around it, they seem to move. Let's see, which way is it? So the earth is turning this way. So yeah, they seem to turn this way as the night goes on. And so the stars that are over in the western sky over here, as the night goes on, they sink below the horizon. If you're looking out over the sea to the west, they seem to sink down below the level of the sea. The bads of all the western stars. The seas, the stars in the west. As the night goes on, they dive down into the ocean, into the bads here. It may be that the gulfs will wash us down. It may be we shall touch the happy isles and see the great Achilles whom we knew. What is he referencing here? The happy isles. And see the great Achilles whom we knew. What is he talking about? What are these happy isles? Who's Achilles? He was the greatest warrior that fought in the Trojan War. What happens to Achilles? He dies right at the beginning of the Trojan War as the city is being captured. He's killed at the poisoned arrow. So when Ulysses here in this poem is talking about seeing the great Achilles on the Happy Isles.
He got shot in.
Right. That's why it's called the Achilles, right? The Achilles tendon, because according to the Greek myth, Achilles, when he was a baby, his mother wanted to protect him. His mother was a goddess. His father was a human, a king, Peleus, and his mother was a goddess of the sea named Phoebus, a daughter of Poseidon. So Achilles' grandfather was Poseidon. And so what his mother did to protect him, because her son was mortal, is she took him and she dipped him in the river Styx, this river that the gods swear on, this river in the underworld. And what this did is that it protected him from being harmed, except for one small part of his body on his heel, where his mother was holding him when she dipped him entirely into the river. His one weak point. Now this, Homer doesn't really talk about this, but in other Greek myths we hear about this. It's the only spot where he's vulnerable. And so as the Greeks are capturing the city of Troy, Paris is there. Paris, who convinced Helen to run away with him, is also a bit of a coward. He's an archer. The Greeks didn't like archers. They thought they were kind of cowardly. You should be up there fighting face to face, not from a distance. And so he has this arrow and he shoots it at Achilles, and a god guides it right into the one point where Achilles is vulnerable. So Odysseus here, is saying, it may be we shall touch the happy isles and see the great Achilles whom we knew. What are these happy isles then? Odysseus here is speaking at the end of his life. So where's Achilles? The end of Odysseus' life. Where's Achilles? He's dead. Achilles dies before the Greeks leave Troy. Odysseus here is speaking at the very end of his life, after he's returned home to Ithaca after the war. The happy isles, these isles where the souls of dead heroes would go, and they had a sort of somewhat happy afterlife. Maybe we shall touch the happy isles and see the great Achilles whom we knew. All right, lots to say about this poem, but I'll stop there for now. But really, sometime go out and look at the stars. Even better is you go out someplace further from suburbia and the cities, go someplace where it's really dark on a nice clear night. The fall is good for this. It's a sort of clear nights, and it isn't too cold. Someplace where it's dark enough that you can see the Milky Way in the sky. Where would I go? Western Maryland works. Probably parts of West Virginia work. You don't have to go that far to get a really big difference. Now there is, even there, the sky is not as dark as it would be in the middle of the ocean or in the middle of the wilderness. But you can still see a lot of these stars. In the ancient world, remember, they don't have electric lights. Their lights come from things that they're burning, either wood or oil or something else. And so they wouldn't have a whole lot of lights at night. The moon, okay, you can see the stars best on a night where there's no moon, where the moon hasn't risen yet, or it's a new moon. When there's a full moon at night, that lets off a lot of light and makes it harder to see the stars. But they didn't have screens or electric lights to distract them or make it harder to see the stars. They spent a lot of time looking at the stars. If you haven't ever done that in a sort of deliberate way, I recommend that you do it. Spend 45 minutes or an hour lying outside looking at the stars. Do it with some other people. That's actually really fun. You know that scene in Lion King where it's like after Hakuna Matata and Timon and Pumbaa and Simba, they're all lying on their backs looking at the stars and talking about balls of gas. Do that. Do that with a couple of friends, and just chat while you're looking up there. That's a really great experience. And you'll notice as the night goes on, the stars rotate. And over the course of the year, you'll actually see different stars because as the Earth is moving around its orbit in the sun, there are different parts of the universe that you're able to see. And if you go to different parts of the world, there are constellations that we can't see from here, but if you were in Australia, you'd be able to see at night, and vice versa. Because the Earth we've got the sun. Got the sun. Symbol for the sun is this, by the way. And then you've got the Earth, which the symbol is that, which is tilted and spinning, but it also goes around the sun like that. And so, right, when the sun is shining, here, this part is night, this part is daytime. So, we live like up here in the northern hemisphere, so we can see these stars that are over here, but we can't see the ones that are here below the Earth, so to speak. And vice versa, the people down there in Australia or wherever, there are stars that they can see that we can't see. Yes. All right. Spend some time looking at the stars sometime. Go camping, go driving out someplace. Shenandoah would be a good place to go. Find like a field, a large parking lot works because if you're in like a forest, the trees are going to make it harder to see. Even parts of the eastern shore, southern Maryland, are going to be a lot better than right around here. You don't have to go all that far for it to make a real difference. Here you can see some stars. You can see the brightest ones, but you can't see the Milky Way, for example. That's really amazing. It's hard to find some place where it's dark. Yeah, a couple times, and it's really incredible because. Right, so our star is one of millions in this galaxy, the Milky Way, and it's like a big flat disk of stars. And so, in that area of the sky, going across it's called the Milky Way because it looks like almost like a road going across the sky, where it's just sort of a little bit brighter because of all of these stars in the galaxy. And that's really you go someplace really dark, a nice clear night with no moon. That's a really amazing sight, seeing the Milky Way. But try it someplace easier to get to first. Try to find even just a dark parking lot or something. Then you can try going further and and then notice patterns in the stars. You can learn the constellations if you want. You get lucky, you might see a shooting star or two. Some satellites. Satellites just look like stars, but they're moving very steadily across the sky. They don't flash like airplanes. It's like a little star just moving across the sky. Do it sometime. All right. Anyway, let's get to Homer. That's what we're here for. So book 10, Odysseus is on Aeaea. He's just about to meet Circe. And what advice has Hermes given him about when he meets Circe?
Not to go into Denver?
Yes, he says, I'm going to give you this drug to protect you from her potion. Threaten to kill her. and then she's going to try to seduce you, and you should go along with that. But what is he supposed to do before he?
Make her swear he won't hurt- swear that she won't hurt.
Right, swear that she won't hurt him once he's lying there vulnerable. All right. So at the very bottom of page 239. So on 239, Hermes told Odysseus what his plan should be for when he goes to Circe, what has Circe done to Odysseus' men, or many of his men? She didn't kill them.
No, she made them into pigs.
Right, she used her potion and her wand to turn them into pigs. Yes.
What?
Pigs.
That's
Turn them into pigs, but their minds, she doesn't change their minds. So they're still men's minds in pigs' bodies. All right, so at the very bottom of 239. With that, the giant killer handed over the magic herb, pulling it from the earth. And Hermes showed me all its name and nature. Its root is black, and its flower white as milk, and the gods call it Molly. Dangerous for a mortal man to pluck from the soil, but not for deathless gods. All lies within their power. Now Hermes went his way to the steep heights of Olympus, over the my heart a heaving storm at every step, paused at her doors, the nymph with lovely braids. I stood and shouted to her there. She heard my voice. She opened her gleaming doors at once and stepped forth, inviting me in. And in I went, all anguish now. She led me in to sit on a silver-studded chair, ornately carved, with a stool to rest my feet. In a golden bowl, she mixed a potion for me to drink, stirring her poison in, her heart a swirl with evil. And then she passed it on. I drank it down, but it never worked its spell. She struck with her wand, and now, she cried, off to your sty, you swine, and wallow with your friends. But I drew my sharp sword sheathed at my hip, and rushed her fast as if to run her through. She screamed, slid under my blade, hugged my knees with a flood of warm tears and a burst of winging words. Who are you? Where are you from? Your city? Your parents? I'm wonderstruck. You drank my drugs. You're not bewitched. Never has any other man withstood my potion. Never. Once it's...
Wait, who withstood your potion?
He did. Odysseus.
Not Hermes.
Odysseus?
Hermes is the one that told him, right?
Right. Hermes told him how to do this and gave him the herb. Never has any other man withstood my potion. Never. Once it's passed his lips and he has drunk it down. You have a mind in you no magic can enchant. You must be Odysseus, man of twists and turns. Hermes, the giant killer, god of the golden wand, he always said you'd come, homeward bound from Troy in your swift black ship. Come, sheathe your sword. Let's go to bed together. Mount my bed and mix in the magic work of love.
Yeah,
We'll breed deep trust between us.
Hermes knows exactly what she's doing.
Yeah, Odysseus has been warned about this by Hermes. So she enticed, but I fought back still wary. Circe, how dare you tell me to treat you with any warmth? You who turned my men to swine in your own house, and now you hold me here as well. Teeming with treachery, you lure me to your room to mount your bed. So once I lie there naked, you'll unman me, strip away my courage. Mount your bed? Not for all the world. Not until you consent to swear, goddess, a binding oath you'll never plot some new intrigue to harm me. Straight away, she began to swear to the oath that I required. She'd never do me harm. And when she'd finished, then at last I mounted Circe's gorgeous bed. At the same time, her handmaids bustled through the halls, 4 in all, who performed the goddess's household tasks. Nymphs, daughters born of the springs and groves and the sacred rivers running down to open sea. One draped the chairs with fine crimson covers over the seats she'd spread with linen cloths below. A second drew up silver tables before the chairs and laid out golden trays to hold the bread. A third mulled heady, heartwarming wine in a silver bowl and set out golden cups. A fourth brought water and lit a blazing fire beneath a massive cauldron. The water heated soon, and once it reached the boil in the glowing bronze, she eased me into a tub and bathed me from the cauldron, mixing the hot and cold to suit my taste, showering head and shoulders down until she'd washed away the spirit-numbing exhaustion from my body. The bathing finished, rubbing me sleek with oil, throwing warm fleece and a shirt around my shoulders. She led me in to sit on a silver-studded chair, ornately carved with a stool to rest my feet. A maid brought water soon in a graceful golden pitcher, 242, and over a silver basin tipped it out so I might rinse my hands, then pulled a gleaming table to my side. A staid housekeeper brought on bread to serve me. Appetizers aplenty too, lavish with her bounty. She pressed me to eat. I had no taste for food. I just sat there, mind wandering far away, lost in grim forebodings. As soon as Circe saw me, huddled, not touching my food, immersed in sorrow, she sidled near with a coaxing, winging word. Odysseus, why just sit there struck dumb, eating your heart out, not touching food or drink? Suspect me of still more treachery? Nothing to fear. Haven't I just sworn my solemn, binding oath? So she asked, but I protested, Circe, how could any of them free? All my beloved comrades, let me feast my eyes. So I demanded. Circe strode on through the halls and out, her wand held high in hand, and flinging open the pens, drove forth my men, who looked like full-grown swine. Facing her, there they stood as she went along the ranks, anointing them one by one with some new magic oil. And look, the bristles grown by the first wicked drug that Circe gave them slipped away from their limbs, and they turned men again, younger than ever, taller by far, more handsome to the eye, and yes, they knew me at once, and each man grasped my hands, and a painful longing for tears overcame us all. A terrible sobbing echoed through the house. The goddess herself was moved, and standing by me, warmly urged me on, a lustrous goddess now. Royal son of Laertes, Odysseus, tried and true, go at once to your ship at the water's edge. Haul her straight up on the shore first, and stow your cargo and running gear in caves. Then back you come and bring your trusty crew. Her urging won my stubborn spirit over. Down I went to the swift ship at the water's edge, and there on the decks I found my loyal crew consumed with grief and weeping live warm tears. But now, as calves in stalls when cows come home, droves of them herded back from field to farmyard once they've grazed their fill, as all their young calves come frisking out to meet them, bucking out of their pens, lowing nonstop, jostling, rushing around their mothers, so my shipmates there at the sight of my return came pressing round me now, streaming tears, so deeply moved in their hearts they felt as if they'd made it back to their own land, their city, Ithaca's rocky soil where they were bred and reared. And through their tears, their words went winging home. You're back again, my king. How thrilled we are, as if we'd reached our country Ithaca at last. But come, tell us about the fate our comrades met. Still I replied with a timely word of comfort. Let's haul our ship straight up on the shore first, and stow our cargo and running gear in caves. Then hurry, all of you, coming along with me to see our friends in the magic halls of Circe, eating and drinking. The feast flows on forever. So I said, and they jumped to do my bidding. Only Eurylochus tried to hold my shipmates back, his mutinous outburst aimed at one and all. Poor fools, where are we running now? Why are we tempting fate? Why stumble blindly down to Circe's halls? 244. She'll turn us all into pigs or wolves or lions made to guard that palace of hers. By force, I tell you. Just as the Cyclops trapped our comrades in his lair, with hot-headed Odysseus right beside them all. Thanks to this man's rashness, they died too. So he declared. And I had half a mind to draw the sharp sword from beside my hip and slice his head off, tumbling down in the dust. Close kin that he was. But comrades checked me, each man trying to calm me left and right. Captain, we'll leave him here if you command, just where he is, to sit and guard the ship. Lead us on to the magic halls of Circe. With that, up from the ship and shore, they headed inland. Nor did Eurylochus linger by the hull. He straggled behind the rest, dreading the sharp blast of my rebuke. So what happens when Odysseus goes into Circe? What happens when he goes into her palace?
We don't know what, and they got saved, like everything.
Right, so after he does just what Hermes had told him to do, he joins Calypso after making her swear, Circe, after making her swear not to hurt him. And then she's got these 4 nymphs that attend to her, and they prepare this feast for Odysseus. But what does she notice? Odysseus is at this feast. He gets bathed by these nymphs. And
But he doesn't seem like he wants to eat her.
yeah, he doesn't have an appetite. She says, Odysseus, what's wrong? Why aren't you hungry? What does he respond?
That no right man in your mind should trust her.
So he shouldn't trust her. Why? What is still the case?
His man.
His men are still pigs. So what does she do?
She changes him back to even more better than it was.
Even more so than they were before. Yes, taller, better looking, stronger, younger.
Like, what was her point of doing that?
What was her point of doing all that after you turning them back, you mean?
Yeah, no, like, trying not to pick anyway.
It seems to be this is what she does when visitors come to her island.
But, and then, is he still, like, on his way back to, so this is right, this is, because, like, I thought Calypso was the last.
Yeah.
So this is before Calypso?
Yes, this is before Calypso.
So she was the first simple braids that he met?
Yes. Yep. But the second one that we see in the book, yes. Yeah, the idea is Penelope has been faithful to Odysseus this whole time. Yes, she's thinking about marrying one of these suitors, but at least so far she hasn't. Odysseus, on the other hand, there were plenty of women that he that he acquired in Troy. He spends this time with Circe. We see him with Calypso, and that here certainly with Circe and Calypso he doesn't have many options. That's true. Troy is a little bit different. For the Greeks, this is a big difference. That faithfulness in marriage is more of an expectation for the women. Odysseus is faithful in a way. He is trying to get home. He doesn't want to stay with Calypso, who chooses to leave. She gives him the option to stay and be immortal with her. So there is a kind of faithfulness there. But in terms of sexual fidelity, it's not the same for the two of them. All right. And then Circe, apparently Odysseus there's something about him that nymphs with lovely braids just find irresistible. Because Calypso tries to convince him to stay with her forever. Circe, to stop him from being so sad, turns all his men back into men from being pigs. Right, so his men are back, and then what do? Sorry. What was that?
Oh, no, he got it. Aside those dolphins.
No, he goes to follow the rest of the crew.
Right, he goes to the rest of the crew. Remember, half of his crew had gone originally to Circe's palace and gotten turned into pigs. The other half stayed behind, and Odysseus, when he went back to try to rescue the guys who got turned into pigs, he left them there. He gets back, they're shocked to see him. They're glad. Homer compares them to calves, baby cows, where their mothers had been grazing off in the field all day, and then at the end of the day, the cows are brought back to the stalls where the calves are, and the calves are thrilled. They're jumping around, they're mooing, they're happy to see their mothers again. That's what Homer, or Odysseus really, compares his men to when they see him again. And what does he tell his men to do? These other men. He says, "Let's do what?" Yeah, let's go back to Circe's house. It's gonna be a blast. Everybody think this is a good idea?
I don't get. Why would you think that to go back?
Right. That's what. Who thinks this is a bad idea? Going back to Circe's palace.
You just got turned into
The man with twists and turns.
Well, that's Odysseus. So the men who got turned to pigs, they're still at Circe's palace. Only Odysseus goes back to get the rest of the men. I think. These other men, who's not so sure about this plan to go back to Circe's house? Yeah, Eurylochus. Eurylochus was the guy who led that first group to Circe's palace, and he stayed outside when the rest of them went in and got turned into pigs. He was the only one to make it out of that first group without being turned into a pig. And he says, I think you're crazy, Odysseus. You want to go back there? We're all going to get turned into like sheep or goats or something. Some stuff like that. And how does Odysseus respond to this?
He said, where are you running now?
Well, that's what Eurylochus says. He says, Yeah, Odysseus says, I had half a mind, this is line 483 or so, I had half a mind to draw the sharp sword from beside my hip and slice his head off, tumbling down in the dust. Close kin that he was. He doesn't, his men hold him back, but Eurylochus ends up coming along. Conflict between Odysseus and his crew. We've seen it a few times before. All right. We'll pick up with the rest of book 10 on Monday.